Hi, Misha here, and for whatever reason, the HK G36, especially the G36E, the full-length barrel model, is just a gun I really like. I'm not going to say it's a favorite or anything, but it's one I really enjoy. And one benefit of HKs is they're pretty modular. Easy to swap handguards, easy to swap trigger packs, lowers if you will, stocks, optics even, and if you have the right tools, easy to swap barrels. And this gun has been in this configuration for a little while. This is kind of a G36E export config, also very similar to Spain's standard issue. Mainly I say that because it has the single optic, which is a 1.5 power, and then it has backup iron sights, which are actually plastic fixed sights on top. It's kind of a neat look though, and of course that makes it a carry handle. But after I kind of found that I wanted to change it up a bit, plus I was kind of ready to take it out to the range again, so let's do that and we'll move forward. G36E. Alrighty, installation went fine. HK stuff is like that. I took the stock that was on it, which was the G36C stock, which is used on newer Bundeswehr G36s like the A2 model, because it's shorter, and I replaced it with the original full-length G36 stock. Went on just fine, nice and tight, good lockup, good exposure of the ejection port, fits into the cutout on the handguard, just fine. Now, I had the C stock on because I'm a shorter person and it was more comfortable. But it does kind of look a little odd. For one, you'll notice here's your ejection port. There's plenty of space here, then it's just a straight wall. Since this is about an inch shorter, I actually had to cut it out here above the hole for the sling to make sure there was enough space clearance for the ejection port. That always struck me as a little weird looking. I know it's fine, it just, you know, when you're doing it, it just doesn't look quite right. So it really was just a looks thing. And also, it's kind of neat when you unfold these. Make sure I don't get my sling pinched up here, or my finger for that matter. Set you down for a sec. Where the sling swivel is at, sometimes it likes to get where the stock folds. There we go. See a nice tight lockup here with no problems. And there's a very noticeable little cutout on the handguard for the standard stock to fit into. With the C stock, that actually kind of bumps the edge of that, pushing it out just a bit, and that kind of bugged me. These might seem like silly things, but anyone who's been around HK, now apparently the camera actually did think it was silly. Anyway, but you know, I've had this for a while and just felt like making a change. I just kind of wanted the right profile stock. I didn't so much go out looking for this as one came my way. And the way HK parts are, if you don't grab them, they disappear and go crazy. But I do cosmetically like it better. It just looks more appropriate and it lines up well with the front end. Why not? Because this is in every other way, you know, a Bundeswehr style G36. So, let's move on to the next parts swap. G36E. Listen, that threw away. There we have it. I picked up this cover at RTG a few years ago. It's Bundeswehr, German Army surplus. Neat canvas cover. And I finally decided to put the right thing in it. I've had this on the gun. This is the single optic. These can be found in either 1.5 magnification or in lesser cases 3. So simple magnified scope set for 300 meters, and then very simple basic iron sights on top. Also doubles as a carry handle. It's very lightweight, just a few ounces, and it is held on with 3 screws and dovetails in the front and back. Cool modular system. But again, because it came my way, it was time to put this on. Now, I've actually had a dual optic in the past, although it was a little worse for wear. These were made by Hensoldt, which is owned by Zeiss, and are incredibly obsolete by modern optics standards, which for me doesn't really matter. However, when the G36 was being tested and adopted in 1997, this was radically ahead of the curve. The base it's on is the same, even having the iron sights up here, even though you can't use them. Dovetails on, serves as a carry handle. And as the name suggests, it has 2 dual sights. The bottom is the same tube. It's 3 power, and it's adjustable from 200 to 800 meters with compensation. Pretty standard. But the real unique tech for the day and time was the top optic, which is a red dot, a reflex sight, no magnification. Again, by today's standard, hopelessly obsolete. But back then, pretty good. It, during the day, was powered by ambient light, and at night, a sensor would switch over to battery power. Now, the intensity wasn't really adjustable or anything like that, although you could slide open, if I get it on the top here, to let more light more easily in, if necessary. Really unique for that day and time. And believe it or not, this was considered a small, at least military grade, reflex sight for the mid-late 90s. Even though it's huge by today's standards. It's still quite lightweight. It's polymer. Although it does add a good bit of weight to your gun. I really like having the correct Bundeswehr look, but that's what kind of held me back, plus the price, from doing this. It adds a good ½ pound to your gun, bumping it up to about 8 pounds. Whereas with the single power optic, it's 7.5 or even less. It's still not horrible. I mean, for 18-inch barrel gun with a bipod on it, 2 sights, all that. You could do worse. But I really like how slim the G36 and how light it typically is, especially like the G36C models. But again, I kind of decided I was going more for a clone look here, so why not? And again, I lucked into one of these at a good price, otherwise I still wouldn't have picked one up, but it does definitely complete the overall aesthetic of the gun with the mag and the flash hider and everything. The bipod's easily removable. These are the earlier style handguards. And the Bundeswehr has used the dual optic setup for a very long time, really until just recently when they finally started upgrading their G36 fleet in the last decade or so. Not only would they replace this with the QD modern reflex sight, they would go to a railed handguard, and some of the models they would actually put that G36C short stock on because people were using body armor more and more. But they still stuck with the G36 rock and lock style mags, even though AR-15 magwell adapters are there. And just finished up by popping on the rubber eyepiece. I don't know, I had to put this on. I figured I'd just record a little video. It's been a while since I've talked about the G36, and it really is a gun that I enjoy working with, handling, shooting. It's interesting, kind of low-key cool. And this one's quite reliable. Sure glad I didn't go with the T36, no offense to Tom Bostic, but my life has enough headaches already. I don't need more. Yeah, I'm quite happy with the overall look of the gun and everything about it. And these parts I picked up on a trade. Actually, they did come from HKParts, but they didn't come to me because of the T65 thing. It was a wholly separate thing. In fact, I had something they wanted, and so I said, oh, okay, I'll do this, but trade you a few parts because they had some dual optics and stuff. So, and it, worked out well for both of us. Saved them from having to pay fully in cash and got me a couple of parts that I probably wouldn't have just picked up if I had to pay for them outright. Once upon a time you saw SL8s, and therefore you saw a lot of the Bostic SL8 to G36 conversions. But in more recent times, yeah, the T36 is about all you see, because the SL8s were discontinued around 2010, 2011, somewhere in that time frame. So this is just kind of fallen by the wayside. Although the G36 has been in the news in recent years, first because of the quote-unquote controversy and politics behind it, but then of course because of its potential replacement, where HK and Hanel were kind of gearing up to fight each other to see who could replace it. And I think a lot of people view this as maybe a failure. I don't. It's been used by over 24 nations, produced in them even, like Spain. And it has been the standard issue gun for the Bundeswehr for well over 20 years. Actually, we're coming right up on 25 years. So it's outlasted a lot of its predecessors. And even some guns that were adopted later than it have since been replaced. It is very modular. It's very simple. I kind of think of it as the Glock of the gun, of the rifle world. There's just very few external controls. It's corrosion resistant. It has a cold hammer forged chrome line barrel. What issues it has really have more to do with the Bundeswehr's requirements than HK themselves, because they were given a weight allowance, and so the gun could not go over a certain weight, but it also had to have a certain accuracy, it had to be ambidextrous and several other things. So yeah, they used a lot of polymers in it. Also, it had to meet a price point because Germany in the 1990s, right after reunification between West and East, did not have a lot of money, and the military saw a lot of budget cuts. On the other hand, their old G3s from the West and the AK-74s from the East just weren't going to cut it going into the 21st century. So this is what they could do, and it was a good, solid gun, if not earth-shattering. It really did borrow elements from lots of things. You know, from like the Swiss SIGs, you've got a very similar mag, very similar stock mechanism. The gas piston is an improved version of that used in the Armalite AR-18 and is the exact same gas piston used in the HK416 and MR556. Many of the other elements like the push pins, the flash hider are just kind of iconic HK parts. And even though we might kind of snicker at it today, again, having a dual optic as standard issue, that was pretty ahead of the times. Speaking of the dual optic, it went on nice and tight. You don't want these to go on loose. It's on here nice and tight. So should not have any troubles there. And with that, I appreciate you kind of hanging out with me today while I work on my gun. It's always good to have a little bit of company. With that, we can pack her up. This just folds over. See, a nice stiff stock. It stands on its own. It locks to the cartridge deflector here. Like many other guns, you just slightly push it up, and it easily pops in. And yeah, there's that special cutout in the handguard just for it. In case you're wondering, the bipod, if you want to release it, you pull this out, you press it and pull it out, and it just QD comes right off. And the flash hider is your typical HK with the tines. It just, you can take them off by hand, yet they don't ever work off in the field. HK, you know, they've had a good idea a time or two. I will give them credit. I think you know me, I'm kind of a big SIG and Walther fan, but I'll grudgingly give HK credit from time to time. And I really do think the G36 was more of a success than a failure, and I think it's kind of unfairly maligned. If you've never shot one, give it a try if you ever get a chance, like I say, a range, especially an automatic. They're actually quite enjoyable. It just has a different feel to it. Anyway, if you've ever had a G36 project, I'd love to talk with you about it in the comments. If you have any questions, please feel free to post. I don't know if HKParts has any more of these. I did just recently get it, so they might. And if you could, like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to the Patreon page. And with that, this is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time.